Hello, everyone. How are you? I am Violet Lee, your Tai Chi examiner. And today I have the pleasure to interview Linda Kella from Sydney, Australia. Yes, down under. And we are summer here, you're winter there. And Linda is, how should I say, she has been suffering from migraine, which is can be a very debilitating health problem. But now she becomes an expert in the field, and she has been using so-called mindfulness and many different techniques. She has been adopted and helping herself. And not only that, she used her own experience, her knowledge, and helping others. She created a website called Mindful Migraine, right? And
Yep.
she has a lot of subscribers, as far as I know, right? A lot of people join your club, so from the comments I read through your website, and you are making an impact on other people's life. And today, you spend your valuable time here with us. You're going to share your life journey with our readers and our audience. And I really thank you for doing this. Okay. Well, thank you again for coming and to the program. So you want to say a few things? Hello,
Yeah,
Linda.
first of all, I'll say hello to everyone and thank you so much for having me. I also just wanted to let you know that I sit in the darkness because of the migraine. So if I look a little bit out of focus and dark, it is a deliberate decision. So sorry for that. But yes, super proud to be here, super happy that I can help in any way.
Okay. So can you share with us when did you first had a migraine issue, and then how long it has been last? And
Yeah, so my first migraine, I was about 11 and I was on a bus on a school excursion. And the teachers were telling me it was probably homesickness, it was probably motion sickness. And we went through a whole batch of things. But when I returned home, my mum was adamant that it was a migraine because she's had lived with migraines her whole life. But when I was younger, they only came very occasionally. So they didn't disrupt my life and I didn't take a lot of effort to try and learn anything about them. It was only when I became 50 and I suspect there was some perimenopausal hormones happening and things like that. I'd started a PhD, so I was under a little bit of stress. We had the COVID lockdown and the kids started coming home. That those occasional migraines started to merge. And instead of being an attack and then a clear space and another attack, they started to get closer and closer until eventually I was in bed almost all day, every day, trying to either recover from the illness or push through the illness. And eventually I went to the neurologist and I was diagnosed with chronic migraine. And to have that, you have to be sick at least 15 days of the month with migraine. So obviously more than
15 days
50%.
in a
Yeah.
month,
So
and
at
it
least
can be
50%.
continuous or just one day on, one day off. Is that right?
Yes, but that still means that 50% of your life you have a migraine. And to explain what that feels like, it's like your head is in a vice, your neck starts to cramp, you vomit. At its worst, I can't actually walk or talk properly because this side of my body becomes paralyzed. So it's not just a bad headache. It's probably closer to the worst hangover that you've ever had. You move, you feel like you're going to throw up. The light comes in the window, you feel like you're going to cry. People bang a pot by accident out in the kitchen, and that noise just runs through your whole body like glasses breaking. It's extremely painful, and there's no cure. There are different medications you can take, but basically, in the end, when I went to the neurologist after nearly a year of this, he said to me, Linda, there is no medicine that's going to take this away. No prescription that I write is going to make it better. You have to change your lifestyle. You
So
have to
before
stress
you
less.
saw your doctor, neurologist, did you take any medicine over the counter or any prescriptions
So
or anything?
I had things like blood pressure medication to try and reduce the pressure in my head, which sort of worked. I took medication on the days that the attacks were bad, but then there's this risk that if you're taking medicine almost every day, you start to get rebound headaches and withdrawal symptoms. So it was a spiral. It was a downward spiral. Medication was definitely not the solution looking back on it. And
I
whilst I was
see.
very upset on the day that he wasn't able to just hand me a tablet and say, here, all your pain will go away, he instead said to me, you need to do the hard work and change your attitude, your stress, lifestyle choices. It was exhausting, but it absolutely made a difference because on a much deeper fundamental level, I changed my relationship with my body and with my pain and with my life and started to get better almost straight away.
Wow. Well, Linda, from what you just said, it seems there are a lot of things, a lot of information. Sorry for my ignorance
No,
because
that's okay.
maybe I'm a lucky one. I never had a migraine. Okay, I, from time to time, I may have a little bit headache, especially when I was young. I had a period, and that time sometimes I have a little bit a headache, but yeah, I don't know much about migraine. And then you mentioned a couple of things. First, you say your mom had a migraine, right? So is
It is
migraine?
more often than not genetic. It gets passed down
I
through
see.
families. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But again, the difference is um, even if you carry that gene, because it's in a gene, it might not necessarily get triggered. So, in the same way that for 4 decades I had migraines on and off, but wasn't overly, sick with it, it was
Mhm.
only when all those other contributing issues with the environment around me and the stress that I was under that it then brings it to the point where your body just says, you know what, the only way I know to get you to slow down and stop is to put you in bed with a migraine. And it was
So when
only,
your doctor, your neurologist says you need to change your lifestyle,
yeah.
so what does that mean? And
So
you
in
doing
that
a lot
same
of
way,
heavy drinking
no, so I don't
or
drink or
party the
smoke.
whole night or
No, I never did
what
all
you
of that.
doing?
Well, that's why I was disappointed. I didn't feel like I'd done anything to deserve it. I'm a very sort of laid back, casual person. But what I did do that I hadn't really paid attention to, I didn't protect my personal boundaries. So I was always helping other people all the time, which is what is a nice thing to do. But it meant that I never had spare time. I never rested. I never recovered between all the things that I was doing, the activities. So I didn't sleep properly. I probably didn't eat in a regular way. I was tending to eat on the run because I was running around for everybody else. I
You have a
think that,
family, is that right?
yeah, 2 teenage daughters, so it's all full on
Wow.
all the time.
And
And
you also had a career as an architect, am I
so
right?
architect and project manager, but again, this is where it's
My
interesting. I
God.
could work on a construction site and with 100 men and be bossing people around and they're bossing me around. And that didn't trigger a migraine. It was something much later. And I think there was a hormonal component. I think perimenopause was playing a part. And
Mhm.
I think as well, and I look back on it, and this is going to sound weird, but I had made up my mind to do a PhD and I wanted to do something for myself. And I think on some level, I felt a bit guilty that I was spending time doing something for myself instead of doing things for my family. And by prioritizing myself for 20 hours a week, I was still trying to fit in everything else as well. And
So you were
I
still
think
working full time
still working part time, still
or part time?
parenting,
Okay.
still. And then the kids came home because of COVID lockdown, so I had them in the lounge room while I was trying to study in the office. And and again, I look back on it, and a lot of it was my fault. I didn't ask for help. I didn't say no. I didn't slow down. I didn't
Well,
prioritize sleep.
I don't think you should say that it's your fault. And I think we, how should I say, a lot of time we did not realize that, and especially, and just from talking to you and reading your your writing and your website, it seems you care so much about other people, and you put other people in front of you. You neglect yourself,
That's right.
and then and and I actually have some of those personality traits. I don't know how to say no, and then it just puts a lot of pressure on ourselves. So,
So yeah,
so
it's not so much that I blame myself for getting sick. It's just that I think you have to take a bit of accountability, because if you
uh-huh,
pretend that it's just something that happened to you and you were just really unlucky in the wrong place at the wrong time, then it's easy to imagine that a tablet will fix it. But
I
if you
see.
start to say, actually, you know what? Maybe because I don't rest enough, maybe because I don't find time to sit in the sunshine and just enjoy the moment, I'm always hustling, I'm always rushing. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I have to wear some of that and recognize that this is again back to what the neurologist was saying. You need to start to make some changes in your life and your attitude to make space for that healing. Because I look back now and I was never going to get better because I just never stopped. And I know now that my migraine was trying to ground me. It was trying to get me to stay in bed. It was trying to get me to rest and recover. And it was a painful and a glitchy and an annoying way to do it. But it was my body and my brain trying the only way it knew how to get me to stop and to get me to rest.
Well, in your the short story collection you wrote that called Gothic Migraine, and I think the probably was the chapter one, the first one, and they're talking about nightmare, and you describe, well, you say the whole thing is fiction, right? And but the pain is real, and but I want to believe some is your personal experience, right? So you can write so well and so vivid, and I don't think it is something you just made it up. And but while I was reading, your book, and then it just was like, wow, that's a lot. And I could not believe, of course, early you mentioned about you, if you hear something, it's like something's crushing you or whatever. And then in the novel, you say you feel like the wall is crashing, coming
Yes,
in, right? And
yes.
during the so-called nightmare. And then you say, oh, it's 40. It's 40 hours. And the the protagonists in the now short story say, oh, it's like 40 hours has passed, but there are another 32 hours.
That's right. So the
So you're
traditional
saying,
migraine is
okay.
72 hours long. So 3 full days of pain. Yeah,
So
bedbound
in
pain.
the 3 4 days is like is there any break in between? Like like if I was delivering my baby, right? I have that contraction and I felt the pain, and then it went away a little bit, and then it came back, and it just getting, the frequency is getting higher and higher. So can you describe a little bit more? So what exactly going on in that 3 days? It cannot be all
So
that
for me,
intensified, right?
yeah, for me, a traditional one is my eyebrow starts to hurt. Then it feels like someone's got their thumb pressed in my eye, and I think, uh-oh, here it comes. Then my head starts to squeeze, my neck starts to stiffen up, and I can't move my head. By now, I'm starting to feel like I'm going to throw up. The lights are getting too bright. It's time to go to bed. And then if I haven't caught it quickly enough with what they call abortive medication that tries to stop that cascading effect, then more often than not, that's it. You're just in bed for the 3 days. You try and eat crackers, you try and drink water, you try to shower, but whilst the warm water is nice on the stiff muscles, it's hard to get dressed and undressed as because you haven't got your balance and your strength. And so it's
It even affect
safest
your
to stay in bed.
balance.
Yes, definitely. Yes. So for some people, they actually get dizziness and vertigo and ringing in their ears. So for other people, they get a blurry flash of light. I don't get that, but I do get the what's called the paralysis, the hemiplegia, where half my body stops functioning properly. So it means at its worst, I had a blow up bed behind the couch in the lounge room so that I could pull that out at night and sleep on the bathroom floor so that I could be close to the toilet so I could throw up, but
Whoa.
I didn't have to wander around the house and fall over. So, yeah, at its worst, they're pretty bad.
Well, there was one person who worked on my team before, And then once a while he will have the migraine. Then he will not show up for work. But I mean, he's a guy, and I did not feel like, I should ask him way too many questions. So I never knew it was that severe. And I thought that he just wants to lay down and rest a little bit, but I did not know exactly all these things been going
And this
on.
is part of the problem. There's a bit of stigma there because I see myself as an active, go-getter, confident person. So having to admit that I can't walk myself to the bathroom without throwing up on myself is not something I'm going to tell people. So I had the same
Mhm.
issues. I'd phone in sick to work and I could just feel the eye roll at the end of the phone that people were getting annoyed. So I actually medically
Mhm.
retired myself. I actually resigned from the company that I was working for
Oh.
because I realized that I wasn't a reliable person anymore. And even though I was wanted to be at work, I couldn't get off the floor or out of bed. I just couldn't do it. So having that disconnect formally allowed me to again make some space and not be stressed about being at work, but it also helped them move on as a business without me. So yeah, no, at its worst, it changes people's lives. It changes your relationship to yourself, to your children, to your husband, to your parents, because you don't turn up to their graduation photos, you're not there for their soccer finals, you're not there at the parties, you're cancelling dinner invitations at the last minute. So even the people that love you the most are affected by it and start to, yeah, distance themselves, or
Oh
you distance
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
It has a
definitely.
ripple effect, definitely.
No, you cannot be present. And then also, you probably have to rely on other people to help you a little bit
You
here
do
and
until
there,
you feel
right?
like you've burnt out those relationships. There's only so many times you can rely on someone to pick up your kids, and then after a while, it just becomes embarrassing to keep asking. So yeah, it was a pretty dark time. That 1 year of being fully bedbound was pretty bad. But that's where, I mean, I met you in the sense that with the Tai Chi, I honestly feel like it saved my life because that mindfulness movement got me out of bed. And it was one of the first activities that I did after the neurologist said to me, you need to change your lifestyle. I stumbled across it on YouTube's and videos, and I quickly built up a little routine for myself in the mornings, just 15 minutes looking out the window at dawn, and I would do the best I could to follow what was happening. And I would hug my tree and I would wipe my clouds and I would part the horse's mane and I would do the best that I could as I stumbled through all of this. But what it did is
Mhm.
it gave me this sense of agency back over my life, back over my body. So up until
Mhm.
then, I had felt as if the migraine controlled my day and my life and everything that I
Mhm.
was going to do for the day forward. But with this little moment of window of Tai Chi, I was able to say, you know what, if I do nothing else today and I spend the rest of the day in bed, at least I have done this. And as I looked out over the sun rising over the houses next door and things like that, I felt a calmness. I was grateful to be here for another day. I was grateful that the weather was good. I found ways to reconnect with my environment. And I just slowly started to become grounded back in my body and see it not as because again, when your body is giving you the pain, you start to hate your body. You start to resent the fact that I didn't get hit by a car and I can't resent the car that hit me. It's me that woke up this morning and gave me a migraine,
Mhm.
nobody else. It's just me. So you start to actually hate yourself a little bit, and this moment
Oh.
of breathing deeply at the window made me stop hating myself a little bit. The Tai Chi movement just slowly allowed me to find some grace, to find some peace. And that I think is another important thing is that a lot of the migraine literature talks about migraine warriors that you have to fight through, you have to battle these attacks, you have to, keep fighting.
Mhm.
But that's an analogy that is exhausting. If you are always in battling migraine, you're always at war with
Mhm.
yourself. It was much nicer to lay those weapons
Mhm.
down and actually say, you know what, this is who I am in this moment. I'm just going to set the pain aside and I'm just going to focus on my breath. I'm going to focus on what my fingers are doing. I'm going to sit a bit lower in my hips and be aware of the fact that my spine is straight or not, and adjust it. And very, very slowly in subtle ways, yeah, just become a more one with your body, which I hadn't done for a long time. Stop fighting it and find some peace and synergy with it. And it was super empowering.
So now you have a routine. You do this mindfulness practice with Tai Chi and others, and every day is that what I'm hearing?
So definitely for over a year, I was doing it every morning.
Uh-huh.
Then I think I did what we all do, which is I started to get a little bit better, which meant that I could do more things, I could be more places, I could go back probably into that old version of me where I'm now running around doing things for everyone else. So that 15-minute window I've kind of set aside a little bit, which I regret. But in other ways, it filters through now in the rest of my daily life. So if I'm waiting for the kettle to boil, I'll hug a tree and I'll stand there and I'll concentrate on my breathing for a while. If I'm standing at the front door and my daughter's being annoying and is running late to get to soccer and I can start to feel myself getting stressed about the fact that we're going to be late, I just stop and I take a moment and I do some of those Tai Chi movements that are reminded me of those mornings, and I can actually calm myself back down again very quickly. And so after about a year of Tai Chi and other mindfulness, I went from being sick almost every day, all day, to now I could go maybe 2 weeks without a migraine. And then if I do have one, it's only maybe for half a day and it's nowhere near as painful. The medication works quickly and I'm up and about much faster. So
Did
it
you say
is.
medication went quickly or meditation?
So medication works faster. So in the past, I could take tablets and tablets and tablets, and it just my body had just ignored it. It had kind of got bored of all of those tablets. Now I can take half a tablet of the
So,
original medication, and that's
uh-huh,
enough. It's just enough to send the signal to my brain that okay, we're going to stop this pain loop that we're getting into.
uh-huh.
But mainly, what's happening is I'm not falling into like a pain fear cycle, which is what I was feeding off when I was at my sickest. You would wake up in the morning and you'd say, oh, I'm sick again. I'm never going to get better. I'm always sick. I was sick yesterday. I'm going to be sick tomorrow. And without realizing it, then your body changes and you hunch and you scrunch and you're frowning your face and you're holding your head. And when your body goes to do kind of like a welfare check on your system, if you like, all it sees is misery and sadness, and your
Mm-hmm,
body is under tension. And it goes, oh, I knew there was a problem. I knew we should be alarmed. I knew we
mm-hmm.
should panic. And the migraine pain would get worse. Now, even though it might start in my eye, I remind myself to drop my shoulders, lift my chin, be careful of my posture, slow down that breathing. And so now when my pain brain goes looking for something to worry about, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
find it anymore, or it finds less to worry about. And it goes, oh, okay, no, she seems to be okay. We don't need to panic. We don't need to ground her back in bed again. And if occasionally I go out and the sun was too bright or the music was too loud somewhere and I do start to feel that pain again, I now respect my boundaries a bit more, and instead of just pushing through, I say, I'm going home, I'm going to take my half a tablet and I'm going to lie down. And within a couple of hours it's done its job. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
sun and the moon. It's so different in terms of my life in such a short period of time.
So did you ever, I mean, just recently, after you made that change, and have you ever say, well, now, it's coming, and I'm just going to do some Tai Chi, and then and then make it stop and not continue, or
Yes,
do you
so you
still
can
have to
do that as well. Yep,
okay,
definitely.
you
It's
don't
not always a
always,
turn to medication. No, it just
I see.
depends on the situation. So, again, like I was saying with my daughters, if I
Mhm,
can feel the tension starting to rise because I'm starting to get stressed that we're going to be late, I can feel that that's something I can turn back down just through the Tai Chi and the breathing, even to the point where my daughter came in the other day and she said, why are you dancing while you're putting the dishes away? And I said, I'm not. This is Tai Chi. and, and she was just sort of like did the typical teenager thing, just rolled her eyes and walked out. But what I had realized is that in that moment, I could just by slowing down my movements and putting the dishes away instead of rushing through that activity, I just put it away slowly and I actually moved my body as I was doing it and was mindful of where my hands were in space, where my feet were on the ground, and in
mhm,
that way, instead of having this morning routine the practice is sort of spread across the day into almost everything that I do. It's how I sit down at the desk now. It's how I walk through space. It's how I lift the groceries out of the car boot. It's being mindful of how my body is twisting, making sure that my back is supported and I don't hurt myself. And to the point where I'd say it was about 5 years ago. So before the migraines got bad, I was probably going to have a hip replacement. So I have scoliosis and my whole body is a little bit out of whack. And it was putting a lot of pressure on that left hip.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a problem anymore. So somewhere
Wow.
along the line, I know it's still very, it gets achy on a really cold day or if I've really worked hard. But
Uh-huh.
other than that, there is something in the way that I hold myself now, in the way that I move, in the way that I experience my body that stops me from crushing those spinal things. So
So I really like what you just said about how now you live your life. It is, I think it's not just that 15 minutes or whatever in the morning. And it's also how you live through your everyday life in a
every
Tai
day.
Chi way
That's right.
and in a
And it is
mindfulness.
that because it's not what I see when you see the people in the park doing the routine, the choreographed slow motion dance, if you
Mm-hmm.
like. That's not what I'm participating in. But I am rolling onto my toes, lifting onto my heels, moving my body in, when I'm waiting in line at
Mm-hmm.
the bank, and being aware of the fact that, yeah, this feels right, this feels wrong. I'm going to put my balance back on this side, and just these tiny little moments that you can reclaim multiple times through the day, and
Yes,
then
actually,
there's this.
that's probably the most important thing. And then there's some people they may doing the the choreograph beautifully, but outside their practice, they they either forget or they not aware of, and they are always in their fight and flight mode, and then
And this
they
is.
don't live through the moments and the feel it. And I think what you're doing is really really great, and then I think that really helps you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that fight or flight mode is so important because right back at
Mm-hmm.
the start, when I was trying to experience different ways of doing mindfulness at the neurologist's advice,
Mm-hmm.
things like Yin Yoga, which is what he had proposed, put me into a state of stress instead of relaxation. I was watching
Mm-hmm.
these videos and I couldn't bend the way that people did, and I couldn't hold those positions the way that people did. I was
Uh-huh.
folding over my stomach, which made me want to throw up, or my neck felt like it was under pressure. And instead of my body slipping into the rest and digest mode that it was designed to do when you
Mm-hmm.
do yin yoga, the reverse was happening. I was starting to get tense. I was breathing shallow. I was starting to panic about what I was a failure at this as well as everything else in my life. And this
Mm-hmm.
negative narrative started to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the important things is not to give up on mindfulness altogether, is just recognize that this particular mode is not helping me for now. So let me see if I can find something else. And the same sort of thing happened with the Tai Chi. I would try to do the routines and follow the lady
Mm-hmm.
and step to the left and roll to the right. And I would get flustered because I couldn't keep up. And the brain fog and the pain and the lack of core strength and the lack of balance, I mean, I couldn't do it. But when I found videos of a lady just standing in nature and doing motions, like I keep going back to it, but that hugging the tree or
Mm-hmm.
tracing the moon or something very, very simple, I felt again that sense of empowerment that I can do this. If I just keep it simple at a pace that I can control, I feel empowered. I can make it work for me. And then that's where,
Excellent,
yeah,
excellent. Mm-hmm. Very, very nice. So, so now, how should I say? Oh, by the way, regarding your novel, there's one chapter you were talking about. There's a newlywed couple, and they're trying to buy the house,
yes,
right? And then, and so the real estate agent took them into this house, and then, when the lady say, I would like to see what's up there in the attic. So the agent, of course, as the story was saying he did not wholeheartedly trying to sell their house. So he was climbing up the step, and then he did not feel good, and then he went down, and then he threw up. And later on, the husband went up, and then the wife followed, and then wife fell sick also. So so what are you trying to tell the readers? Are
I
you
guess that in
saying mhm,
for me, it's there's a sad truth to having migraine, which is that this body is my house. This is where I live.
mhm,
And for me, the attic is the dangerous place. It's the bit that brings me down. It was the bit that makes me sick and makes my days miserable and makes me vomit and all the rest of
mhm,
it. And for me, it was hard too because as a young person, I was the book nerd. I didn't play a lot of sports. I was short and fat and ugly, and people teased me for how I looked. So my body was not something I respected or appreciated. I just lived inside my head. My whole house was summarized by this attic space. That's where I preferred to spend all my time. And to then discover that of all the things that could go wrong with my body, it was my brain that was giving me all these problems. So I guess the analogy was that trying to remind people that each of us has a house and each house is slightly different. And there are good spaces and bad spaces in our house that we admire and respect, and ones that cause trouble. And the things that happened to the people that went up into the attic and symptoms that they showed, the dizziness, the vomiting, they're all migraine symptoms. So what was happening to those people are all the things that happened to someone with a migraine. And then when they return at the end of the story to the street and they look back at the house, they acknowledge that the house looks exactly like all the other houses in the street. But now they've had a different experience where they've experienced what it is to feel pain inside that home, that they see the house slightly differently. One sees it as a bit more negative, one sees it as kind of cruel, one sees it as sad. And I guess
mhm,
that's the lonely thing about having a migraine is for a lot of the time I'll go to the school and people won't notice as I'm picking up the kids or dropping things off that I'm in pain. They don't know how much I'm pushing through. And this is the loneliness that comes with chronic pain, is that you can live in this home that's the only home you've got, and it's far from perfect, but it's what you have.
well, another story you actually talk about the twin, the brother and the sister, right? And then it's kind of mystical the way you talk about the problem the sister was experiencing. You know, her whole half side of her body just totally turned black, and the other half is still normal. And then so people thought she's crazy, and then she had a big health problem, whatnot. But at the same time, you were saying her brother, her twin brother, actually was having migraine. And but a lot of time people look at that person, they outside they look normal, right? But
So
inside
again, this is
they are suffering so much.
that's right.
I really like how you put these two together and makes, because first you feel like why the person start turning black, you know, black eye and then whatever, black on the arms and whatever. So I really like your way of telling the story, and it's very vivid and very strong. And
But
then
again, this is
yes,
this frustration that if someone, again, this is not meant to be disrespectful, but if someone is in a wheelchair, then there's we're quick to say, oh, they're disabled, for example. They're going to struggle to get up this ramp or these stairs, and we will help them. If you have a chronic migraine, you are also extremely disabled. You can't get through life in an able-bodied way, but nobody stops to help you. Nobody thinks, because again, and that was sort of the story, is if there's this physical manifestation of problems,
mm-hmm,
people are much more likely to pay attention and focus on you and help you. But if there's some sort of internal pain, and especially again, we push through, so we probably don't make it clear to others how much we struggle, but we
mm-hmm.
just don't get the priority. We don't get looked after in the way that others do. And I'm not saying the others don't deserve to be looked after. It's just a shame that we can't be more empathetic to everybody that's struggling in different ways.
Yeah, well, like I say, I was a little bit ignorant about the health issue. before, but then it seems a lot more people are getting it now than like say decades ago, and maybe something to do with the environment, something to do with the lifestyle. We all live in this 24/7 type of mode.
Definitely,
Yeah.
and the stress, and I think also again, without being mean to the medical profession, but in the past we've been too quick to hand out tablets to solve problems rather than, so maybe at the beginning, if someone hadn't have said, here, try all of these medications, maybe if
Mm-hmm.
they said right back at the start, you just need to sleep, you need to get more rest, you need to set your boundaries, you need to be at peace with your body, maybe get some therapy to understand what
Mm-hmm.
hang-ups might be that are help making things worse. You need to tell your family to pick up the laundry more often so that you're not so chronically overwhelmed by the housework. Maybe if I'd put in place some of those earlier things, it wouldn't have never got to the stage that it had got to. And I also think it's that stigma again that we don't like to expose weaknesses very much. So we do suffer in silence, and then those occasional migraines get worse and worse. And that's why I think again, a lot of people are suffering because they don't want their employees to know. They don't want other people to feel sorry for them or to make a fuss. So yeah, I think what you're doing is really important, and that's why I do it as well. The more we can talk about it and make people understand that it's an
But
issue and
you're
that
very
people are.
courageous, and you actually, your website is dedicated to this health issue, and you provide a different, how should I say, possibility for people to try and then to get better. And what prompted you to start writing about it?
I think the year that I was so sick was the darkest year of my life. I was so sad and so lonely. I felt like such a failure. I couldn't, help my kids get to school. I couldn't make money to pay off the mortgage. I felt like a failure in every possible way. So as well as the pain, there was a huge amount of shame and guilt and loneliness on top
Oh,
of it. But
mm-hmm.
then when I started to do the mindfulness and the Tai Chi and the meditation eventually and a bit more Yin Yoga over time, I started to feel better, and I started to realize that there was hope, that you could improve your, move from
Mm-hmm.
illness to wellness. And as I was talking to the neurologist, I guess my eyes must have lit up or my body got excited. And I was saying how happy I was that I couldn't believe that these small changes had made a difference. And it was the neurologist who said, you should write a blog. You should actually
Oh, mm-hmm.
share what you're talking to me about and tell other people. He said, one of the hardest things as a doctor is to tell people, stop taking medicine and start changing your lifestyle. They just don't believe that it's going to work. So he said, if you can do it, then I can tell other people it's possible. And so now I'm just trying to find it. But I made a little business card, which is just about the
Oh,
mindful
okay.
migraine.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And he has that on his desk. And when his patients come in and he says to them, I want you to try something different for a while, he gives them
Oh.
the business card and they come. And every now and then I get emails from his patients saying, thank you for helping us realize, because I think a lot of the world is filled with ads from medicines and doctors and advice from professionals, but what we don't often hear a lot is success stories from real people who are saying, this is not great, it's not easy, and my writing includes projectile vomiting and the fact that it's a warts and all story, if you like, so people can relate to that. And almost as soon as I started blogging and people started reading, the loneliness disappeared, the despair disappeared, the hope got brighter and brighter. I started to learn from other people. I started to feel engaged with the world again, and to be seen and understood is another really important aspect. So in my family, even though my mother had migraine, nobody really understood what I was going through. To have other people online write to me and say, I 100% get where you're coming from and why it's so hard, is very validating. And so the
Mm-hmm.
feedback and their stories keep me going. So on the days when I was at my sickest and thought I can't be bothered, I don't want to do this anymore, I remembered that there were other people out there who were struggling too, and it motivated me to get up and keep going.
But don't overload yourself.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. We need you to be pain free, and then so gradually and you can help more people. But I also notice you write pretty frequent, right? It's like
So
sometimes you write every week, and
so it's 3 times a week at the moment. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But again, in that
three
returning to
times
that
a
boundary,
week.
3 times a week.
That's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
I think
Yeah.
there's a little part of me that says at the end of this year, I will have been going for 2 years. I might drop back to once a week. So I wonder sometimes now that I'm more pain-free, if talking about migraine all the time is keeping migraine too close to me, that maybe I need to take up gardening or do some other activities that and get excited about them and put my time and my research into gardening, for example, instead of migraine, so that it's not front and center in my mind all the time. But on the other hand, I do feel like I'm making a difference. I do feel like people need to hear that they're not alone and that their struggles are real. And so maybe that once a week is what I'll do. I'll drop back a little bit, make some more time
Well,
for myself.
I I have a similar journey, and not say the pain, but as far as writing, and I was writing so frequently, 3 times a week or whatever, or sometimes a little bit more. And then I also had a full-time job, and also as a parent. So lots on my plate. And then to a point, I did not have time to practice myself.
And I think that's it's finding that balance as well. So I promise myself if I wake up and I'm feel like this is too much of a chore, then it's not helping me and I'm not going to help others.
So
So
that
but
you better than me. So then until one day I heard myself, and then I was like, I need to take care of myself first. So I kind of cut back, but it is great. Your bravery, and also your uh, great writing, and with lots of humor and good advice, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be helped. And I just cannot believe it, that some of the study I have read, they say 1 in 6 people
yeah, it's
suffering from
dramatic.
there.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. And then
And
also mostly with women. Women have higher percentage.
about 2/3 of the patients are women. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
So,
pretty grim.
but there's hope. Hope
Oh,
is,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
And
I
that's
mean,
that is it, end of message here is just be the mindful movement makes the difference. Get back out of your head and into your body, move slowly, be aware of your space. And again, look, it's really hard. If you're really sick, you just want to stay in bed, but getting up out of bed and looking out the window is a small victory. And if you can do that each day,
mhm,
um, you're already healing. You built hope back into each day.
mhm,
So yeah, yes, that's what I say.
yeah. Well, thank you for all you do, and thanks for spending your valuable time with us. And so I'm pretty sure many people can be benefiting from there. And thank you again.
Oh, you're so
Okay,
welcome. Thank you for having me.
okay, bye.
Bye.